Weapons! It's the hit new horror flick from Barbarian director Zach Cregger, and today I'd like to explain the plot and talk about what the hell just happened. Let's go. First off, Weapons is split into several chapters, each taking the perspective of a different character. First, the elementary school teacher Justine, then Mad Dad Archer, local cop Paul, homeless degenerate James, school principal Marcus, and finally third grader Alex. For the sake of simplicity, I'm going to forgo delving into each chapter one by one and just relate the plot as it happens chronologically. Cool? Cool. So basically, the events start off with Alex, who is being bullied by Matthew, the son of Archer. Alex's parents are prepping for the arrival of his mom's supposed sister, Aunt Gladys, whom we're meant to believe is at death's door, given Mr. Lily's reference to their house not being built for hospice. Gladys arrives and isn't even able to carry her own bags, and when Alex takes a peek in her room, it's obvious that this woman is not long for this world. She's old and haggard and bedridden. But then, one day, Alex returns home from school to discover Gladys up and about while his parents sit and stare ahead like zombies. Gladys makes a point of using a spell involving the snapping of a blood-stained stick covered in his parents' hair to force them to stab themselves in the face with forks, showing the young boy that she's not to be trifled with. But why the zombification of the parents? Well, in order to stay healthy, Gladys psychically siphons energy from those under her spell. This isn't really explained in any detail, mind you. Unfortunately, the parents' energy isn't enough, and so she has Alex steal a personal belonging from all of his classmates. He goes along with this, taking their cubby name tags during PE, which she uses to concoct a sort of potion. Aunt Gladys goes about casting her spell, and at 2:17 a.m., all 17 of Alex's classmates do the Naruto run out from their homes and converge on his house, where Gladys stores all of them in a zombified state in the basement. Obviously, this doesn't go over well. We skip ahead a month, and the police have no clue as to what happened. They're pretty useless. The parents mostly blame Justine, and chief amongst those parents is Archer. Justine is put on leave by her boss, Principal Andrew Marcus, due to the parents' growing animosity toward her. She withdraws into alcoholism, and after grabbing 2 bottles of vodka from the liquor store, hell yeah, she's followed home by Archer, who's resorted to stalking her. He paints the word witch on the side of her car using red paint from a construction job. Kind of a dick move. Meanwhile, her old flame Paul, a beat cop, chases down James, who's trying to break into a building. He inadvertently gets pricked in the finger by a used needle in James's pocket, which is an interesting detail given Gladys pricks her finger with the thorns on her weird magic sticks in order to complete her spells. So, interesting juxtaposition. Anyway, Paul punches out James and, realizing he's in some deep doo-doo if James lodges a complaint, demands that James stay away from him in return for letting him go. Cops, am I right? That night, Paul meets Justine at a bar, where she pressures him to drink despite his ongoing sobriety. Again, dick move by a character. Stressed out the wazoo, Paul gives in and they wind up having sex, much to the chagrin of Paul's wife Donna, who later attacks Justine in the liquor store. Despite being told to keep away from Alex, Justine winds up following him home, where she notices his windows have been blacked out with newspaper. Upon further inspection, she sees Alex's parents in their catatonic state. After Marcus declines to help, Justine sits outside the house and falls asleep in her car, where she's visited in the night by Alex's mom, who cuts off a lock of Justine's hair. It's absolutely terrifying. Like seriously, oh my goodness, my entire theater just could not help themselves during this scene. They were freaked the fuck out. Archer, asleep in his son Matthew's bed, has a nightmare wherein, amongst other things, he sees a floating AR-15 displaying the time 2:17. It's hard to know exactly what this is meant to represent, but I'll get to that in a bit. After the dream, Archer is inspired to use a map of the surrounding area to pinpoint where the children were running. Something it's kinda surprising the police didn't consider, but as previously noted, they're useless. Meanwhile, after meeting with Marcus at the school, Gladys places a spell on him, forcing him to kill his husband. Then, using that clip of Justine's hair, Gladys sends Marcus after her. It just so happens that Archer is busy confronting Justine at a gas station, and he helps fend off Marcus, who is eventually hit by a car and killed. Rip to Marcus. He was a cool dude. Loved hot dogs. Back to James, he breaks into Alex's house and finds the kids in the basement. Later, while going to the police with the info for the sake of a cash reward, he's spotted by Paul, who chases after him. Paul is a terrible cop. James escapes into the woods, sees creepy clown lady Gladys, and winds up stabbing Paul in the face with a trio of used needles. It's hilarious. This unlikely duo then go to Alex's house, where Paul is suckered into becoming one of Gladys's minions, eventually followed by James. Archer and Justine strike up a friendship and discover that the children must have been heading toward Alex's house right around the same time Gladys decides that it's time to leave town. Turns out that kidnapping an entire class of children leads to some questions. Archer and Justine go to the house, where they're attacked by Paul and James, both of whom wind up shot by Justine using Paul's gun. Alex is attacked by his parents, but luckily, he's been watching Aunt Gladys and learned how she casts spells, and he pulls the old Uno reverse on her, sending the horde of basement children after her. And boy howdy, they tear that broad up. Archer and the rest of the parents are reunited with their children, and after a year, some of them start to speak again. And that's it. It's a real downer of a happy ending. And that's more or less the plot of Weapons Explained. I know I left out a few beats, but hopefully you watched the damn thing before clicking on this video. Otherwise, you're probably a little confused. It seems like a pretty crazy plot, right? That's because it is. But hey, what exactly is Weapons about? That's where things get interesting, because it feels as though this Pied Piper tale could be about two very touchy subjects, while also being about neither. The common takeaway is that the story is either about school shootings, hence the floating AR-15, or child sexual abuse, although obviously with the witchy horror as a metaphor for one or both. What's interesting here, and a bit of a curveball for anyone looking too deeply into the giant floating assault rifle, is that Zach Cregger has stated outright that the film isn't actually about school shootings. Yeah, the giant AR-15, not about school shootings. Duh. One of my favorite theories I've come across is from user Hankramento on Reddit. He suggests that the film is actually about addiction, with Gladys herself as an addictive substance that overtakes a community. Elements that point to this conclusion include the prevalence of addiction among the main characters, the imagery of Gladys's finger pricking juxtaposed with Paul getting stabbed with a needle, and the way that Alex has to take care of his parents, who in some ways act like drug addicts. Per the Reddit post, addiction weaponizes those under its influence, feeding off of them and using its influence to spread further. I think the secret to what it all means, though, is really down to an interview with Zach Cregger, done by Polygon. In it, he explains that he's a fan of David Lynch's Process, which involved transcendental meditation and, quote, incorporating what you get from your subconscious into your art and leaving it alone. Cregger followed this up by saying, quote, the fact that I don't understand it is what makes it so important to me. It's also worth noting that this whole movie came about because Zach Cregger needed to do a bit of writing after the death of a close personal friend. So a lot of this does just come from his subconscious. It's not meant to be taken as a one-to-one allegory for any specific issue. Instead, it's about grief and loss and maybe some other stuff. It's hard to say because it all comes from Zach Cregger's subconscious. So as you can see, we're not getting any cut and dry answers anytime soon, and that is more or less by design. Now, I loved this movie, but there are definitely some flaws, mostly down to narrative logic. For example, why does Aunt Gladys tell a completely different lie to Marcus than she does to the police, who believe that Alex's dad had a stroke? For that matter, does this seemingly normal family not have any friends or other family who might call this into question? It's the one plot point I just think is aggressively flimsy, and if I were more easily bothered by little plot discrepancies like that, might turn me off of the film. And I can see where the detractors kind of come for it for that reason. There is one flaw I've seen brought up that I disagree with completely, that Aunt Gladys doesn't use the 17 kids in the basement. I'm not sure why this doesn't translate for some people, but it's fairly obvious that she's slowly draining the life force from them, much like she did with the parents. I suppose showing us how far this draining can go would have been nice. For example, if we were to see the mom or dad die off from being drained too far. However, I think the ending explanation that they never come out of their comatose states while the children eventually rebound is enough reasoning for those paying attention. Overall, I loved Weapons, and I could keep talking about it for hours, but my time is up, so suffice it to say, I can't wait to watch it again. What did you think? Should we do a follow-up video down the line, further explaining things and delving into Zach Cregger's subconscious? Let me know in the comments, and hey, as always, thank you for watching Screen Rant.